Welcome to another Animation Friday, and today I thought it'd be interesting to dive into cartoon TV networks. The interesting thing is these haven't actually really been around for some time, as far as from what I can tell. From doing my research, I've noticed that at least a lot of the cartoons that came out really early on, at least within the 30s, and maybe roughly 40s as well, they were primarily through the big screen on movies. So before you had a movie premiere, you would watch a small cartoon short. And obviously within the 50s and 60s, we moved to television, where more people were buying TV sets for themselves. But you really only had a couple of major networks. And sometimes you would have cartoons really playing on those networks. So it was very small in the variation. And you also, too, had the fact that within the 70s, in particular, animation wasn't really doing as well. There wasn't a whole lot of creativity, and there wasn't a whole lot being generated out there, unfortunately. And it's really not until the later 80s, or sort of 80s, 90s, where we start seeing sort of the resurgence. And I think a lot of that can be attributed to Disney starting off with The Little Mermaid and trying to kick off all of these really famous, well-known animated films to where we were able to sort of experience an overall creative surge. So not only did Disney sort of get itself off the ground again, but we also saw other forms of media sort of competing, like DreamWorks, and I think the other one is technically called Big Sky, the one I think that does Ice Age, if I'm not mistaken. But and with that resurgence, we get sort of the television, and in doing so, we get these television shows that are primarily, at least within the time period of the 80s and 90s, were really solely dedicated to cartoons and to children's entertainment, in particular cartoons. Did they have shows that were like live action at certain points? Yes, but there was sort of this beginning area where people were sort of, at least animators, were trying to bring forth these various cartoons, and hence we got these various different TV networks. So I'm talking Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, and also Disney being a major player. So really, they were the three really big TV networks that got started, and eventually they spread throughout the world. I mean, you can look up all of the different countries that air these television networks, and it's pretty fascinating. And it still seems like it's still sort of part of the whole experience of animation, in particular within television. Obviously, there is sort of a question of whether or not kids are more into live action, at least nowadays. And obviously, 3D is also a big question too. But you sort of really did see the expansion of animation through these three big networks that came out. If you want examples of television shows that were sort of popular, we obviously got shows from Nickelodeon like SpongeBob. From Cartoon Network, we got sort of The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, all of these different kinds of more sort of bizarre and awkward TV shows. I believe Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends was another one. So we did get all of these kinds of different kinds of shows that were, again, primarily trying to sort of focus on, again, being primarily animated, and also in doing so focus on trying to appeal to kids. And obviously this sort of leads to a sort of kind of branding identity. I guess Cartoon Network was a little bit more of the bizarre. And also I think Cartoon Network, when it's really late at night, they'll show the adult version of cartoons, like, for example, Family Guy, and I think other really strange, bizarre shows. So they kind of were trying to be the strange and kind of out there brand, at least Cartoon Network. Nickelodeon, I almost feel was sort of a middle ground between Cartoon Network and Disney. They're trying to be kind of the zany and goofy, and sort of a little bit uh, grotesque, but not in a very. It's more designed to be in sort of a funny way, and it's not really trying to be, I guess, again, really intimidating or disturbing. Um, so again, I think it sort of created its own sort of brand there by trying to sort of tie in both ends of the spectrum. And Disney was a little bit more innocent and upbeat and lighthearted, and so you got these kinds of different brands sort of put into the forefront and sort of trying to kind of compete with each other and sort of get kids interested. And I think this is really when we started these sort of Saturday morning cartoons, and where kids could sort of watch from the comfort of their own home, as opposed to trying to stay up at a certain point to watch the cartoons, or um, or having to really uh, go to a certain place in order to see the cartoons. They can just go to their specific channel and they can record whatever, whenever they want. And, it's sort of all they're out there on the for them to sort of view. Uh, and this was, I think, a really big step for animation in general, because you sort of had it there available. Whereas you didn't really have that experience before. There was a certain amount of limitation, and you didn't really have anything that was really devoted to kids, with entertainment. I mean, the only real sense that kids could really get out of cartoons was really going to the movie theater, or waiting at one point for um, a show to come on onto a particular station. And now you have all these channels who are just dedicated to doing cartoons, doing work that involves a lot of thinking that is geared towards kids. And so again, I think there's a certain amount of freedom that maybe came with that, and that allowed people to just kind of have fun and enjoy the whole experience that they had. Um, and I think you really do see this really being a sort of part of kids' kinds of childhoods. Like really getting up and enjoying whatever television shows were on, and whatever networks they wanted to sort of view or experience. I don't know how much of a prevalence these networks still have. I think really YouTube has taken over a lot of kids' attention, unfortunately, and I think um, a lot of cartoons are again trying to sort of appease to that. For example, we have the new sort of Disney shorts that involve sort of Mickey and trying to regenerate that nostalgic effect and bring it to sort of the younger kids on YouTube. And I think you see a lot of just kind of viral videos that kids watch, and they're more so involved on the internet, which again I think could lend itself well or not. I mean, depending. But I think it really was a sort of bigger step in the sort of direction in as far as how kids sort of viewed cartoons, and how they sort of viewed entertainment. And obviously, we get all the commercials that sort of came with these kids shows, because I mean, you don't really see kids commercials obviously on adult networks, but then you'll see them on kids networks too. And there's always people trying to get kids to buy whatever, or, oh, look at how cool this thing is and whatnot. And so again, there was a certain level of, trying to see kids more as a market, as people with their own sets of ideas and their own kind of voice almost, that I think kids weren't able to have before. And obviously, this can entail a lot of positives and negatives as well. Uh, but it was a step, and a very big step at that, and I think it's still worthy though of recognizing, because these networks were really geared towards trying to bring out the child in everyone, and in doing so, have these networks there so that kids could again have sort of their own uh, ideas and their own enjoyment out of entertainment, which again in the past was really primarily centered more so for adults. Um, but I think that's really all I can say really about this topic. I mean, I think it's really interesting, and it's really nice to see that this resurgence, I think, was primarily bought under the fact that Disney was able to rise again, um, and become the big, gigantic global monster that it is now, unfortunately. I think to a certain extent, I think if it, I think there should be a little bit more competition there, but it's just it's just good that it sort of brought a rise onto other choices and more options. But I think that's really ultimately all I can say. If there are any questions, comments, concerns, I'll be more than happy to answer them. I apologize that this video had to be uploaded late. I may or may not have mentioned in my Wednesday's video that I was going to be delaying Thursdays and Fridays, but I think that's really all I can say, though. But until next time, everybody, bye-bye. I'd be more than happy to hear what anybody else has to say. Until next time, bye-bye.